Welcome everybody to Richard Lloyd's channel. I'm taking over the introduction again. Um, you probably thought this review wasn't going to happen, but here we are. The one who waits. It's you guys. You've been waiting a long time for this.
It's very true.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'll introduce well, you can introduce yourself, but I'm Pete, or Peter, whichever you want to say.
I'm Josh.
Go,
Hello.
yeah, go
Yeah,
for it.
it's a free for all. Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I'll go on. I'm Miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm Richard,
So,
obviously.
so the best till last. You know what? Actually, I actually think you do such an effortless job with those introductions. I'm nowhere near on your level, but I'm getting there. Someone did say I was their favourite out of all four of us, so I'm taking that compliment.
Yeah, fair
Wow.
enough. I mean, you've done a fair
yeah.
few intros yourself now. And,
I mean, everyone's allowed to be wrong, aren't they? So
yeah. I mean, yeah, this
Lovely.
is the last round table of the series, so it's your big finale, end of term type of feeling, I suppose. And we've been here every week. Like Pete says, we're a bit late with this one just because of various logistical things, but
because we wanted to all be here for the last
we
one.
wanted to all be here, yeah, because we've come and gone, haven't we, throughout the series week by week. We've had different variations, like different TARDIS teams almost, but no, we're all here for this. So yeah, we were trying to work out. I think it's like coming up to 3 weeks since the episode aired, and obviously by the time this goes out, I suppose it will be at least 3 weeks. Which, yeah, I suppose it is good in the sense that we've had a bit of time to mull over it, and also the series as a whole and the finale as a whole. So perhaps then on that note, shall we just kind of kick off with some, not like initial thoughts, I suppose, because it's been a few weeks, but just how we're feeling, or maybe how we're feeling about it now compared to how we felt about it like on the night, if that's applicable. I will say, and I've been waiting to include this in the review, so Pete and I went to the cinema. Well, we all went to the cinema, didn't we? Very different cinemas to watch it, along with part one again. And we went with our friends Joe and Dave as well. Shout out to them. And
Shout out to Joe. Joe's a nice guy,
Yeah.
and Dave's nice as well. But
yeah,
I've never met Joe. before.
and shout out
Great
to the,
sense of
the
fashion,
chili
Joe,
and
as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
Very good sense of fashion.
And yeah, so obviously that was like a midnight thing, and we got out at 1 o'clock or whatever. The episode ends, part two ends, and we're leaving the cinema, and I walk past someone on our row, and I just hear them say, "I'm so annoyed," and it's just like it was great. It was it's kind of like encapsulate, not necessarily encapsulating my own feelings towards the episode or anything, but
just the night.
but just the kind of like you were there at 1 o'clock, I think, and then I think Pete, you then said afterwards you'd heard the same people like saying, "Oh, I'm really hoping Ruby's mum's going to be River's song." And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so if
You're
you're
going
thinking
on a path of disappointment.
if
my
you're
friends.
thinking that, then I can kind of see how you've got to that point. But yeah, like being there at 1 o'clock in the morning in this cinema with all these people coming out, just like a very funny thing. I always remember that from the experience.
Here's a fun fact about the cinema screening I went to. So I went with Ben, co-host of the Knowing Who podcast,
Knowing
just
Who.
to plug that right now.
Yes.
What podcast
Apparently, which
talking a
podcast?
bit
Oh,
about
this
that.
is no, it's not great, but anyway. We went to the
Round
Printworks, we went to the Manchester Printworks screening, which Millie Gibson had posted about on her Instagram story, and we were all a bit like, you never know, she could pop up, and obviously she didn't, but she did that little lovely video message in between
She
the two
did,
parts.
yes.
But what we found out later is that another Doctor Who alumnus was in fact at a cinema screening, literally like, down the road practically in Salford. RTD apparently was at the one, in Media City area. So we could have been. We were so close to having at least someone there, but alas, never mind. So that's
When you
my
said
memory.
Telford, I genuinely thought you was going to say Eccleston was there.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
I was there.
Not bloody staying up
Yeah,
for that.
both of them there and have a standoff, and that's the final act.
Yeah, that would have been a great. That would have been a great finale. Very
One
good.
who waits
Yeah.
is Eccleston.
My other memory of the night was looking, because obviously we were all messaging each other on the chat, and I remember being sat down, we were all ready to go, and I saw a message from Josh going like, "I'm gonna be late." So did you get to the cinema? Did you see any of Legend Ruby Sunday?
I didn't see any. Well, I saw like the last 10 minutes or so.
Right.
Because I was
Okay.
trying to get. There was a whole thing about how I booked tickets for back at uni because I came back home and I thought I was going to go back to uni that day, and then there was a whole kerfuffle about getting back home, so I decided to get tickets for a cinema screening near me. But there was no way of like getting there because it was so late by bus. So I had to get
Of
an
course,
Uber,
yeah.
and then I couldn't get an Uber. And so I went over with my girlfriend as well, and they hadn't seen the episode. I thought I'll
Right.
just wait till we see it in cinema so you don't see it again. And then they had no idea what was going on because we ended up being 10 minutes late. And the previously at the start of Legend
Yeah.
of Death, it's
It's
literally
so
the
quick,
last
isn't it?
10
Yeah.
seconds of
Yeah.
the last episode. It's not really previously at all. No help
No.
at
Yeah.
all.
No.
The one funny anecdote I have to say about the screening though is that I had a guy sat next to me, and in the interval between the two episodes, he was like just asking me about the episode, like, did you like it and everything like that. And then I couldn't hear him very well because he sort of mumbled a bit, and he said, "Have you seen like the series?" But I thought he said, "Have you seen the Euros?" Because that was like going on at the time. So I said, "Oh no, I that's not really. It's not really my thing." And he was like, "You haven't seen it?" And I was like, "No, no, no, I've seen this. I just haven't seen the Euros." That was a bit awkward. But it was a fun experience going to cinema. There was a lot of cosplayers there. In the countdown
Yeah.
to the second episode, everyone shouted out the countdown and then went Geronimo. It was fun.
That's same in ours as well. Well, they didn't shout Geronimo, but we started a countdown as that because they did a big 10, 9, 8 after Millie's message, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah.
And we all did a big applause going into the theme. It was great. It was
That's
fantastic.
nice.
So I
Hearing the
loved that.
theme in the cinema was incredible.
Didn't those I mean, I know this is touchy subject with you, Josh, but didn't the titles look lovely in the cinema? I mean, on the big screen, they just there was no way that you couldn't get sucked into the kind of emotion and the it was gorgeous.
Definitely.
It was
And as an
fantastic.
extension of that, the final sort of defeat of Sutek at the end in the vortex on the big screen just looked incredible. And I think that's probably, as we'll get onto, why I didn't mind it as much because it looks so good, I think, in the cinema.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I think as well for me, and I'm sure people would agree. Like, just even going back to part one, obviously we're seeing that again, not for the first time, but yeah, the moment that kind of kicked in with the opening with the TARDIS coming to unit at the start and all those shots and things, I was like, oh yeah, this works really well on the big screen, and it kind of just takes it up another level as well. The whole kind of finale had been described, I think, like by Russell, the director, as like a movie, and it kind of almost, it felt like that in the way it's presented as well with this. So yeah, like I think with Legend of Ruby Sunday, it was. I mean, go back and watch the review if you want to get our thoughts on it. But I think I got a bit more from it. I still thought it was just kind of a load of setup really, and not much else. But it was really great, and the spectacle of it, and both parts actually, the kind of visually, worked really nicely as a kind of cinema thing. So that was nice. I mean, Empire of Death. Then I'll kick off with some thoughts, I suppose. I don't know how I feel about this, right? And the finale, and so there were things that I liked, there were things that I didn't like. Things that I liked, all the stuff with Sutek's Dust of Death and the Death Mask, and Evil Mel, and kind of liked the 73 yards call back, although it was very random, and I'm not sure how well that was integrated. I like the fact that Susan Triad sticks around at the end and becomes part of UNIT. That was great. I liked...
Don't make the tea. Don't make the tea.
Don't make the tea. Liked the... I mean, the final scene with Millie and shooting the TARDIS. Apart from maybe the little bit where he's like, "Oh, you've changed the way I talk about my family," that felt a little bit weird. But aside from, and some of the music was a little bit overblown as well, I felt. But apart from that, the kind of whole sentiment of that I loved. I liked the Ruby's Mum thing in itself. I think the build up to it was a bit pretty misjudged in the way it was hyped up and talked about. That's a few kind of random bits, and we'll get into all this. But someone else, maybe. I mean, Miles, I think you loved this episode, so maybe give us some thoughts, opposite views, maybe. I don't know.
Sure. I really did, and it's one of those things that the more I think about it, the more I really did love it, and it's amazing because I wasn't so hot on the Legend of Ruby Sunday. I thought that was just very, like you were saying, it's just set up, and there's not really that much being set up. And I thought the whole Ruby Ruby's kind of the time window stuff all felt very like it didn't really go anywhere. So to have a part two that's massively surpassed it, and also that I just really loved, and okay, there's a lot of melodrama in there. You know, there's a big dog being dragged through a vortex, and the doctor's there screaming, and then the exit scene has got this swelling music. But that's kind of why I love it. You know, this is the kind of the Doctor Who that I grew to love, you know, the big swirling, you know, doomsday scenes of you know, heartbreak and everything. So I just loved it. I thought that it really hit all the marks for me. I loved what I think a lot of people didn't in the Ruby reveal, which I'm sure we'll go into a bit more as we talk more about the review. But I thought that was the perfect way to end that story. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fantastic way to end the series, and it left me with kind of withdrawal symptoms after that episode had gone out. I was already like, I'm really sad that we're going to have to wait now. So I actually got this the other day to try and fill the gap. £3. It's not bad that.
Wow.
So I tried. I really want to
£3.
fill that
Where'd you
gap.
get that from?
I know. Oh, you gotta know your sources, Josh. It's felt like I've got a dealer of Doctor Who books now. So I kind of I'm already missing that team and Ruby and all of that because I think it really ended on a high for me. But what about you two, Josh? Do you think were you quite favourable to it as well?
I really liked it on the night when I saw it in the cinema. I think looking back, it is an episode that's flawed, definitely. I think that I don't mind the reveal of who Ruby's mum is. I like the sentiment of that as well. I'm also headcanoning that Louise Miller is related to Lucy Miller because they are so similar as well. We've said before on here that Ruby is very much like Lucy, so I think that would be a
of course.
Thread to tie up. I think though things like the signpost reveal was in particular quite poor in terms of just like setting up a mystery for the season. I think is a bit of a cop out for it to be, oh, we've cleaned up the VHS tape and this signpost that wasn't there before is now suddenly there and isn't even in the Church on Ruby Road. If you rewatch it, it's not there. We just invented this. And a lot of things did feel like last minute faults. I think in as far back as well, Legend of Ruby Sunday. I wasn't here last week, but I didn't last week. I wasn't here when we talked about it. I'm back in the mindset now. I wasn't here when we were talking about it, but I think that I wasn't too fond of it as well. It was very setup and exposition and stuff like that with the VHS that they watch every Christmas. Why wasn't it in the Church on Ruby Road? You know, a lot of reveals in this finale felt like afterthoughts, but I did like the main bulk of the episode, the sort of desolate landscapes of like a ruined universe, similar to Flux, but I think done from a different angle with the spoon scene. I thought was really nice coming at it from that kind of emotional angle. Whereas with Flux, it's all sort of special effects, the universe being destroyed, and you don't really get that apart from Binder. So all of that stuff I liked. Sutek was perhaps easily defeated, but I enjoyed it for the most part. But there are definitely flaws to it.
Peter, is with some final thoughts and initial thoughts, or
I feel like I did enjoy it in the cinema, but a lot of my attention was just stealing glow sticks off kids in the cinema. So
what the heck was going
much.
on in your screening?
What?
Richard knows.
we had a shooty cosplayer, a female shooty cosplayer who was came round and to be honest, like, what's going on here? And she was walking around the rows, handing out glow sticks for us. The sticks, and you curve them round, and
but
they were quite difficult to get around our wrists, weren't they? It kind of we spent a good amount of
evidently
time
not hard to nick from people.
I'm a bigger Doctor Who fan than you. You're only 3. Ooh, sorry.
Name me the third part of the chase. Go on, I dare you.
Your accent like explains it, Pete. That still doesn't explain why you're stealing these things from children.
I
Yeah.
just wanted the glow stick. To be fair, they were quite distracting in the cinema having those glow sticks on. I don't know if you found that, Richard.
Oh,
We had
yeah,
the
I
glow
mean,
sticks on our
in the
wrists, and
sense
they
that,
were
yeah, you're watching the thing
so
and the lights
bright.
were off, weren't they? And yeah, you kind of were
Yeah,
very aware of the fact that there was another light source or like multiple light sources along the road. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But no, I enjoyed it. I think because I watched it 3 times in 24 hours. I was gonna say not through choice. I wasn't
Wow.
held against my
Yeah.
will. But I watched it in the cinema. Then I watched it with my dad the next day when it was on TV, or just after it had been on TV. And then my mate came after he finished work about 10 o'clock in the evening, so I watched it 3 times.
Hmm.
So I can't have hated it to watch it 3 times, but I do think it was very messy. I think there was lots of things in it that kind of went from point A to point C without explaining how they'd got there, and point B was kind of missed out altogether, and it was very messy. So the bit I was going to talk about was the bit at the start of the episode where Kate and everyone vanished. They all get Infinity Ward away and or Endgamed away, and yeah, I didn't dislike it. I think the problem with it is, when that happens that they're all going to come back eventually. It's going to be a reset at the end. I would have quite liked it if it had been that had happened at the end of the first part, because even though they're going to come back, it would have at least left you for a week in between thinking how they're going to survive with just the Doctor and
I heard a good idea
Millie,
that it could have
pretty much.
been the moment Ncuti screams out of the TARDIS at the sort of the dead
Yeah,
universe. That would have been a
Oh, yeah.
good
Hmm.
good
moment
cliffhanger.
for the cliffhanger. But you can see why they didn't do that.
Counter that
But
though,
if
I
they
don't mind that because I mean you look at the classic era and there are so many cliffhangers where it looks like the Doctor's about to get killed or whatever, and you know that he isn't, but the
Yeah.
whole point of the cliffhanger is how on earth are they going to resolve this? And you know that it is going to get resolved when Kate and the whole of Unit and Ruby's mum all die. You know that they're going to come back, but it's like, God, how are they going to come back? What's going to happen here? So I didn't mind that. It was just the stakes getting heightened more, I guess. I didn't have a problem with that per se.
Interesting. I think for me, probably more on Pete's side. I think just like the fact that they literally go through everybody, and I suppose when they've gone to the trouble of bringing all those characters back as well, and you get a lot of them, I suppose, in part one, but then it's just like take them all off the board for part two, like literally kind of swipe them off, and yeah, I don't know, and it is that kind of nagging sensation, and yes, it doesn't particularly matter necessarily in the broader scheme of things, but it is just that thing of like you watch it and you know they're gonna come back. It's not a question of if they're gonna come back; it's a question of how they're gonna come back. And I mean, I think that was the interesting thing, or one of the interesting things about it as well. I mean, it's basically just the Doctor and Mel and Ruby like throughout like the whole thing, isn't it? But you get the woman like Sean Clifford's character as well with the spoon, which yeah, felt random personally, and it's like I've seen other people say like with all these gods that we've had, so like with Maestro, with Toymaker a little bit as well. Like each of the stories start off with, or in the case of part two this time, starts off with the god kind of having already won,
Yeah.
which is an interesting. I don't know how I feel about that as a kind of because I think with Devil's Chord, for instance, like Maestro's already there, like music is gone, and then the whole story is like a series of moments and like vibes, and like here's a bit of cabaret, here's a bit of Jinx in a different costume, here's a bit of a music off type thing, like rather than like a conventional plot. I think the giggle, I don't mind it quite so much because there's more of a mystery there of like to unravel. I think with this, yeah, it's a bit of a weird one again. And I've seen people say as well, like with Sutek and the Classic series and Pyramids, like that whole story is about the build up to him being released in part four. With this, again, yeah, he's already been released, he's already out there, he's already done his thing, and so this story, part two, is yeah, for better or for worse, it's kind of like yeah, he's already won. This is like his world now. This is the ravaged universe. Um, yeah, it's a weird one because then where do you go from there? I think yeah, part of it for me maybe is that in terms of like a more conventional plot or mystery or whatever or progression, that wasn't there so much. Like you had things like the memory TARDIS, which was it transpires now originally conceived for this story, but having seen it first in Tales of the TARDIS, it's a funny one to get your head around. I still am not quite sure how I feel about the. It's a great set, but I don't know how I feel about like the idea of that, because it doesn't just feel like they're in and they've walked into the store cupboard like next door to the studio or something. And it's like, yeah, like you have some stuff in there. You have, the thing with Sean Clifford. You have like the random 73 yards callback, which I love the idea of because it's made a point of the series and it's calling back. But I just think that they could have done more with that, like having Roger be more prominent or just something less random than, oh, by the way, like in the 40s, 2040s, that is, this DNA thing is to be introduced, and so that is the way we're gonna, find your mum, and yeah, it's such a weird one. 'Cause I didn't dislike elements like that, or even like going to House of Parliament or whatever it was, like the government offices and all that kind of stuff. I liked that in itself, and the costume changes and everything, and stuff with the evil Mel, and even like I suppose the stuff with Sutek and how he gets defeated at the end. I don't mind that so much because, as we've said, it's very nice and visual, and seeing him there on the leash and everything is nice. But I'm going to shut up now because I've been talking far too long. It's someone else throw in some thoughts about all that kind of stuff, or anything basically about the episode. I mean, Josh,
I don't know.
or
Go on,
Pete,
Josh. Go on.
or Miles.
I was going to say about the dust of death and the fact that Sutek has been clinging to the TARDIS since Pyramids of Mars, and the
Yes.
sort of logical side of that, and sort of, I'm not sure if that works too much. The fact that I like to think that we don't see when Sutek actually clings onto the TARDIS. I know that outside of like canon, Russell has said it's at the end of Pyramids of Mars he attaches himself. I don't know if you guys have seen the commentary as well for Empire of Death, the video commentary. That was quite good. There's some good tidbits in that. A lot of stuff got cut, it seems. I think that this era's had a bit of a victim of cutting room floor stuff because stuff like how the remembered TARDIS, once they land in the 2040s, like you were saying, Richard, the remembered TARDIS was meant to disappear and
Yes.
dematerialize. And that's why when they get taken to Unit HQ, they just sort of get beamed there from the TARDIS for sort of seemingly no reason. But yeah, the whole thing with the dust of death I thought was really cool and really impactful and rather bleak. But I think that in terms of like tying it up earlier to the season, it would have been cool if we'd sort of revisited characters from earlier in the season and seen them sort of be dusted away. That would have been really cool to sort of.
Oh yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the problem I have with Sutek, as much as I like his whole plan, is the fact that he's been clinging to the TARDIS since Pyramids of Mars. I'm not really sure how that works. I mean, the Time War, does that mean that there's an alternate universe where the Time War has ended? Because Sutek just unleashed his sands and dust of death on the Time War when the TARDIS landed there. And also, I mean, there's a big finished story for you. But also, the fact that Sutek's been clinging to the TARDIS for so long, why now has he unleashed himself? And also the fact that he has been freed. The whole episode, he stays perched onto the TARDIS the whole time. He doesn't leave. You'd think that now he's free, he would, do something. But he's just staying on the TARDIS the whole time until the end where he's on a leash. So that seemed a bit strange to me.
It's kind of like his temple, though, his altar, and when you're, I mean, like look at Pyramids of Mars. He's on the throne for the whole time. I know he's trapped, but like that's his kind of thing, I suppose. And his aim is just to wipe out the universe, and he's kind of done that. And the only focus is now, well, I've just got to find. I mean, he becomes so fixated on Ruby, and he becomes like us. Who could she possibly be? Why can't I destroy her and all this sort of stuff? And that ends up being his downfall, which I actually quite like, because it's almost like if you fixate on these things so much, it can end up being to your own detriment. And that's why, in my head, that Ruby's able to get so close to him, why he lets his guard down, because in that moment, all that matters to him is finding out this mystery which he can't solve himself. And there's these little threads. It's like, why couldn't he find this database himself? But I think they can be explained away, and stuff like him latching onto the TARDIS. I think that can be explained away in the sense of that he was very, he was thrown away in the vortex, maybe latched himself on, and was so weak, and only at the point when things became a bit more supernatural. I know that it was the sort of the noise in Wild Blue Yonder, but it's kind of only kind of since the salt stuff and those kind of elements have become stronger. Perhaps we can say that maybe then is when he gathered up the strength to be able to start doing this and activate all those angels of death or whatever he calls Susan. So like I suppose it's funny because I can understand where everyone comes from when they point out these little bits in the plot, but I can sort of rationalize them okay enough in my head to still enjoy it. Whereas I was watching Asylum of the Daleks today. Don't ask why. And there was bits in that, and I was just watching it thinking, but that doesn't make sense. And I was thinking, the fact that I'm watching this and instantly latching onto this stuff not making sense, kind of, it proves that that's different to Empire of Death because I watched that stuff and A, it didn't bother me, and B, some of it didn't really occur to me because I was just really along for the ride. So I don't know what that says. It might say nothing, but it might just say that I prefer Empire of Death to Asylum of the Daleks, but that's not hard. So yeah, I can see where everyone comes from when they're pointing out these little things, but personally, it doesn't bother me as much as I think it could do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that give an excuse for lazy writing, or what?
I can buy that explanation. I can see where you're coming from with that. I can completely buy that. I just think that some of the explanation of the Ruby storyline felt underwhelming by design. I mean, it was his sort of reaction to the Star Wars Ray that he said. I think when you're deliberately teasing your audience that it's going to be something big, I get that it's meant to be this big reversal, and it's important because we say it's important and we see it that way, and everyone's important, and I get that, but I think that I know that some people as well have said that Sutek could also be like a metaphor for like an angry fan and just being obsessed over these things and trying to get the answers, but I just don't see the correlation between why Sutek would be so interested in Ruby, because that's what the Doctor's interested in. That's what we as the audience are, and Ruby are interested in. I don't know why Sutek would care, because I don't know why time has shrouded Louise Miller the whole time. That's not explained. I think that's the real unsatisfying part to it, because this is a purely manufactured mystery, and he even says so in the commentary. He like jokes about, oh, why is she in a cloak on a Ruby Road? Well, we don't know. It's like a purely manufactured mystery in that she was deliberately cloaked and hidden for it to become a mystery, because really she wouldn't be, and you would be able to see that it's a young mother giving away a child. So the fact that it's been so artificially done to make a mystery for the season is why I think it seems unsatisfying.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but I suppose, despite the fact I can see all that, I think I loved the idea of what that conclusion was so much that I a bit like Russell probably didn't mind making those leaps, but I totally see why it comes across that way, because you're right. You're right. It is an artifact, a manufactured mystery, but then at the end of the day, that is partly television, and also it is a melodramatic kind of storyline, and it's always going to come across like that. So yeah, but I totally get where you're coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, I think an interesting thing to maybe throw in, like you say, Mars, it is kind of to some extent the nature of television, with all the kind of the building of a mystery and getting people to watch and all that kind of stuff. That kind of part of the rationale behind it, and always has been. I think situating this alongside other finales, other mysteries. I mean, it feels like there's been a lot of that kind of thing, similar type of thing in recent years. That whole idea, similar to the Ruby mystery, where like in the end it turns out to be something very ordinary, or like it was the friends we made along the way type of thing almost. You have it with, I mean, I'm as we all know, like a 13th Doctor defender. But like with Flux, you have it with the whole thing of, oh, we're gonna reveal more about the Doctor's past. We're gonna reveal more like the Fob Watch. We're gonna do it, and then at the end they just like they don't reveal it. Something like the hybrid as well is a similar sort of thing where it's like, oh, there's gonna be a Dalek a Time Lord hybrid or whatever it is. It's gonna be this, and it ends up being something completely different. I mean, yeah, those are kind of examples that spring to mind. I suppose even with something like Bad Wolf in series one, that it was kind of making it up as you go along type thing to that as well. Though I mean, it's difficult to judge, obviously, all these years on and not being around when that was first on. I think that kind of works better, and like the way that finale brings stuff from all the other, like something from each episode in series one, kind of plays into that. How do we feel? Did we feel like, I suppose, yeah, for Miles, yeah, like for you, I'm guessing this would be like on par with maybe the original Russell era finales and stuff, or mysteries or things like that. How do we feel? Yeah, like the rest of us. How does it compare? I suppose to other finales, recent finales, or longer ago, other mysteries from the new series. Was there a kind of noticeable similarity or difference? Better or worse, kind of thing. Or is that too big a question?
I think it's like Josh says, it's more noticeably manufactured in this instance. Like you can clearly see that the Susan Twist stuff, I mean, that's a very obvious kind of it become well. I mean, it's interesting saying that actually, because the fact that we were talking about Susan from Mrs. Merridew, in way back in Wild Blue Yonder, I still can't believe that there was a time when we saw her name on the cast list and we were like, who could this possibly be? And then the episode went out and we were like, oh, she's just a random woman. It was, just happened to be there.
And just as we were speaking, I was just thinking this, like, if the whole Susan Twist thing turned out to be nothing, then the Doctor's speech of, we place importance on it because we find it important, that would make more sense, because it would be us and picking it up and seeing, oh, it's the same actress. Maybe something's happening there. But it's not. It's just fans reading into things. That would make more sense. It's the fact that the plot and the TV show placed emphasis on Ruby's birth, and it's made it snow everywhere because of it. She's been shrouded because of it. She's pointed memories and times changed, and there's been no explanation for that. And it's purely trying to get you. It's highlighting the importance. The audience themselves aren't seeing into this like Susan Twist. The show has made it important deliberately and jangled it in front of your face and then said, well, why did you find this important? Because it wasn't, which I think is what makes it feel a little bit of a cop-out.
But it's also like, how else would they have done it without kind of dangling that carrot, I suppose, because otherwise you can't make the point, because you've not built up that to that kind of like, oh, well, maybe she's important, and it turns out that she's not. The more that we're talking about this, the more that I totally see that, but then I also think like it's almost worth it for me just for those beautiful scenes of the Doctor making that speech in unit, and also the scenes involving Ruby leaving and finding a new family, and also meeting her mum for the first time.
Coffee shop.
It's kind of like they're so well done in my eyes that it kind of makes it all, no matter how we've got there, it makes it worth it. And I know that's also that's kind of giving a lot of leeway to it doesn't matter how we've got there, so long as that's worth it. But so I understand that, but then I suppose that's why it's kind of overridden all that for me personally. So it's not sort of on par with those other mysteries, because it's the end that I like the most.
Right. One final thing on that. I hate disagreeing with you, Miles. I feel like I'm having a go at you.
But I can see where you're coming from, and I think
it's, the thing is as well is that even if they didn't jangle that carrot in front of us with the snow and her being in cloaked, that still would have been Millie Gibson's character's arc. She still would have been a foundling. She still would have wanted to know who her mother is, and that still would have been the story that played throughout the season. So I don't think there was any need to manufacture these extra sorts of mysteries to make you interested, because that still would have been the emotional hook anyway. So I think it's unnecessary, and I think the story suffered as a result for trying to put too much importance on it. But maybe that's just me. What do
Yeah,
you think?
I think you're right there. Yeah, go on, Pete.
Sorry. I think it cut out. Did you say something?
We were asking what you thought.
What did you think?
All right.
Any strong feelings either way to the Ruby mystery and the kind of way it was resolved, or
Not
compared to
really.
other ones? No.
No, it was nice.
Fair enough.
It was no, it was nice that it was she was a normal, ordinary person. I quite like that twist almost. I know that you'd kind of said it the week before, Richard, or a few weeks before, that you thought that might be what Russell would do, and I think that was quite a good way of doing it, because I think
Yeah.
a lot of the time, and I think Russell said something similar in an interview, but I think a lot of the time with these kind of sci-fi and superhero things, you do get like this crazy twist where her dad's Omega and her mum's Lorani, and actually it's quite nice to have something where, she's just a normal woman. Although I can't quite understand why Davina couldn't find her, especially if she worked for the NHS, but we'll let that slide.
Yeah, it's a weird one with that because, I mean, like you say, I kind of sort of called it. Well, I think kind of at the start of the series, or even before, and I think in the video with you, Mars, I kind of like said, it probably something kind of maybe a bit like that. And then for a number of weeks, I was like, oh, it's going to be Susan Twist. She's going to be the mother. And then I kind of went back to it right at the end, that theory. I think it's the best way to bring a storyline like that into the show, yeah, for sure. Like, rather than doing the big overblown, yeah, your dad's Omega kind of thing, and all, like daughter of the gods or whatever. For sure.
That's what.
Yeah,
Can I just say quickly? While I just remember that's what makes me laugh so much. In that, obviously, we still don't know. We've not met her dad yet, and everyone's already latching onto that.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know who her dad is, so her dad could be.
Yeah.
Oh God, it could be Rassilon. It's like,
theory that
have we not watched the past series? Do we not
there
know?
is a theory that her brother is Roger Ap William, isn't there?
Yeah, but and
right.
I can see where people come from when they say that.
Yeah, dad's called
again.
William,
It's like.
Okay.
He's like son of William.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's a connection there.
Okay,
But,
yeah. I think I did see that actually days ago. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really difficult when you're dealing with something like that, because... So I remember in the cinema when that moment happened at the end, and like Louise Miller, keep wanting to say Lucy Miller, all the photos crop up on the big unit screen, which is a nice way of doing it. I like how they're kind of using that screen as part of the way that the television screens into the viewer as well, kind of the story presentation.
Can I just say quickly as well
nice
that
visual
when they show all the
thing.
photos, they show the same photo twice on that screen. There's
do
one
they?
photo, and then there's a photo of Ruby and Carla where they've edited them on a different background, but it's the same photo, and they're both the biggest photos on that wall. So if you pause
I'm gonna have to go back and find that now. Yeah.
I think, to be fair, I think I missed that bit because I was too busy stealing glow sticks off kids. So I think I missed that detail.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those weird things, and I think, on reflection, we'll probably all say that, like I said, that's the best way to do a storyline like that. And that there's no other way that you could have done it where it would have been emotionally satisfying. I think personally, I just wish they'd had their cake and eaten it a bit more, maybe in terms of having like another big reveal that's been building up to, which I suppose you sort of get with the Susan Twist mystery, but like some other mystery that's run out through the series where that is like the big Omega big space twist thing, and then you also have this alongside it. Maybe something like that. And I think as well, again, personally speaking, and I've said as well, like, the other showrunners in the new series have been guilty of this as well, but it's just that thing maybe is a bit irresponsible to hype something up to that extent, when you know it's not gonna be that, and try and make out that, I don't know, like the church from Ruby Road, like in in those scenes on Ruby Road, like, oh, there's all this other stuff going on, and you're gonna go and watch that series, and scene back and like get a ruler and like look at a protractor and this is all going on in the background, all kind of stuff that Russell was saying. I think it's an interesting thing to get into. Maybe I think it's maybe part of a broader thing, perhaps, where, like when he's kind of teased things that haven't actually ended up being in the finished episodes, like with the song in episode 1, or the pre-title scene like Coffee Bar USA 1947 for Legend of Ruby Sunday. I kind of, yeah, I wish maybe some of that had been reined in beforehand almost, so to not kind of like raise hopes or get hopes up. And it does make me a little bit kind of dubious going forward in season 2 as well. Obviously not in terms of the actual episodes so much, but just in terms of like how I think I'm going to be more wary kind of going forwards, like about how things are talked about and how things are hyped up. Yeah, it feels a little bit weird, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Any thoughts, counter thoughts, or not?
Stony silence.
Yeah, maybe that's just one to leave hanging out. I don't know, but
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm glad that you agreed with me on that, Miles, when I said about how they've overranked the importance. So I'm glad we can agree on something with this.
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it was something that was that should have been a series arc. It could have been. It still could have been Ruby's story of finding her mother. That still would have been the emotional arc she goes through. But it could have easily been like a Father's Day type episode. And then it would have been beautiful. We could still have that beautiful scene at the end, which I did cry at when she meets the mother. I loved all that stuff. I did like the reveal. And I think it would have been really emotional. I think it's just because it's placed so much emphasis on it that it's had such negative reception from certain areas because it feels slightly underwhelming. I've no issue with the actual story being told. I think it is really good. But the story arc could have been something else. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm totally with you on that. Yeah. Sorry, Richard, go on.
I suppose the thing as well about it, obviously, the more time that passes, the less relevant all that kind of stuff, like the reaction at the time or the hype from the time kind of matters as well. So kind of to counterbalance my own point, I mean, yeah, and like, yeah, the more that time goes on, yeah, I do, I suppose, appreciate the fact that we got that story in the show for what it is without all that kind of stuff. I think some of the kind of criticism maybe do still stand, but yeah, I suppose like the kind of the emotional truth of it and satisfaction of it, and obviously with all those scenes at the end, the coffee scene, which coffee shop scene, which as we've all said, I think it was fantastic and really nicely done, and the way Ruby's relationship with the Doctor kind of modulates from that point on as well, and we get that scene with them at the end. I really loved how that was played, and you got him there in the TARDIS, you know, when she leaves, and I think he's kind of like at the controls, like as if he's gonna go, maybe like to begin with, and then like you see this moment where like he literally like he switches his pose to like kind of be more, I don't know, like not standoffish, but like you can kind of tell from the way that his pose has shifted that like he's going alone now, like he's gonna kick Ruby out. But it's I love the way that was staged, very kind of Martha-esque, I suppose, in a way. And in terms of the exit as well, or the exit for now for Ruby, like that did kind of catch me off guard. I think even though in the back of my mind I kind of suspected, oh yeah, like even though they've said it's her and Verda throughout season 2, clearly she's not going to be in every episode. I kind of knew that in the back of my mind, but even so, yeah, I think with everything else going on, it was like, oh, in the moment, it was like, oh yeah, this is actually kind of quite surprising, and yeah, I wasn't expecting this to happen now and all that kind of stuff. So I think that was a real positive, all that. Yeah, and Mrs. Flood as well kind of, I think, ties into what I was saying before, maybe about like that's something they've been dangling, and she appeared in episode 4, didn't she, like very briefly, and that was it, like, apart from this and Christmas. I suppose it's nice on the one hand because if she's only in the big episodes, the big tentpole episodes, then like if you're only tuning in for like the Christmas special or finale or whatever, like you get all of her story and stuff. But yeah, that's another funny one where I don't know. It will all kind of depend, I suppose, on how that plays out. I think she's just like some kind of other harbinger type figure, like some kind of, I don't know. She can prophesize events, or she's got like some kind of sixth sense or whatever. She can tell what's going on. She maybe has plans of her own. I get the feeling she's not like an out and out villain, but maybe just someone who, yeah, I don't know, like has something she's working towards, and like if other people get in the way, then maybe she doesn't care so much. It's kind of one of those type of things, maybe. Obviously, the final scene with her in the kind of the white fur coat thing, iconic, brilliant. But yeah, any thoughts about Mrs. Flood?
Well, there's been a
What's
lot
going
of
on there?
theories about her costumes, hasn't there? About the
Oh,
similarity to oh, they're not quite to Clara, because I think the lighting is the thing that the people have been using
Yeah.
of a certain shot. 'Cause it's actually pink, but and obviously the Romana One-esque outfit that she wears at
Rory.
the end, and yeah, is it Rory that they're comparing her puffer jacket to? So it's like, could there be something in that? I don't know.
I don't think so personally.
But I
mean,
think she's obviously
knows?
some sort of a godlike figure, probably with her own harbinger.
White Guardian
And
or Black Guardian.
well, yeah, there's a potential there as well. Obviously Russell's not reluctant to bringing stuff back from the classic series. He's proved that from for the finale. An obscure villain is not off limits. I'm not saying Sutek's obscure, but like for the general fan
One-off villain.
consensus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows? But it's nice that we've got that kind of tiding us over no matter what, as well as the Ruby storyline as well.
What did
And
everyone
Mavis,
think of
that still hasn't been resolved.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, Mavity's still kicking around. In fact, it was
still
also
hanging, isn't
in
it?
this.
Yes, literally.
It's mentioned
yeah.
in this book as well. As
Oh,
is
is
something
it?
going wrong with the TARDIS as well. It's like your proper proper old days when you
Susan
have the
Twist, though,
theories.
that's the question.
That's a good question. I don't know yet. Maybe Susan Twist will be, one of the wolves in it or something. Who knows?
What did you think of the Tales from the TARDIS that came out as well? Because I know we were going to mention that
Oh, of
in the last review we
course.
did. We were going to.
Well,
Yeah, we said that, didn't we? Yeah.
there was a
I mean,
little.
I
line in
haven't
it,
actually watched it
'cause
all the
I've-
way through, so I can
Have
only
you not?
comment on bits of it. But so
the Shooty and Millie scenes in it. Obviously, at the start of it, the Doctor's about to tell the story and says, oh yeah, I was a different man. I travelled with this woman called Sarah Jane, and it's a lovely little moment. And then you watch the episode after the fact, and there's a moment when Ruby goes, and who was that bloke? And
Yeah.
and that it's like I've literally been sat there talking to you about this. She calls him Doctor throughout the whole thing. What? And it's a very weird moment for Shooter to be like, oh, he travelled in the TARDIS, I guess. It's like, why are you so afraid of associating yourself with Tom Baker?
yes.
But yeah, although it was a lovely idea.
I've just this minute thought.
TARDIS
Actually, I suppose you could. I had this exact same thought, and I don't. Yeah, in hand on my heart, I don't really. I can't really defend it, but could you defend it or explain it away as being like Sian Clifford forgetting about her dead baby? Maybe is it like part of the whole memory
maybe
thing? Like she's forgotten who.
slightly skewed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't really believe the words I'm saying there, but I couldn't help but think that. But sorry, yeah, Tales of the TARDIS.
Russell would probably say that. To be fair, he'd probably make it up on the spot.
Oh,
and go,
yes,
I guess so.
marvellous. Yes, yes.
Marvelous. That's a great idea. Lovely.
Yeah.
I did love the idea of doing that though, and someone's found an old interview with Russell where he said, why have we never brought back, like the Fendal and then screened image of the Fendal the next
like on
weekend
BBC Four
before.
or whatever.
Yeah, like it's a really clever idea and a great way to show that you're not afraid of the past and you're not afraid to associate yourself with that, even though it is a fresh start for all intents and purposes. It's been amazing how kind of unabashed this series has been, to reference people like Susan and obscure things from past. The Mara, yeah. Little things like that, which just and haven't really thrown off the casual viewer as well, which is quite nice. Just because people don't know about Sutek going into this, it hasn't affected their enjoyment, which I think is really good to to know. Because as audiences, we do just watch things and we go, oh well, they obviously have met before, or we'll just naturally make connections. We all did it when we got into Doctor Who. Just because we started with whatever episode we started with doesn't mean that we were like, oh well, I'm not going to understand this because I've not seen the Armageddon Factor. So
Yes,
it's all yes, there we go. Proof. Case in point, you've not seen the Armageddon Factor, Richard. Therefore, I mean, all of Doctor Who just doesn't make sense. So yeah, it's been nice that they've kind of had that.
I mean, that's the interesting thing about Susan as well. I can't remember how much we discussed this last time, but my feeling very much is that they've introduced that now. They've dwelt upon it. Obviously, it didn't come to anything in season 1. I think that there has to be something, broader going on there. Season 2, season 3, whatever it's paid off. I hope they get Caroline Ford back at some point. Having said that, I don't know what they would necessarily do with her, or whether she would be necessarily up to doing much herself or all that kind of stuff. I kind of envisioning it more of like a kind of a curated type cameo, like from Day of the Doctor. But I hope that's going somewhere.
Just picturing a scene now of shooting an art gallery and her just going, I really think you might.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't forget to face.
Yeah, but do we think it's going to go anywhere? Oh, okay. In season 1,
Susan was going to appear in this when Ruby meets her mother, and then the Doctor looks through the window, and then he looks away, and he sort of has a sort of pensive moment to himself. I thought he was going to do it, and I think it's time. I need to visit Susan and find out where she is, but that didn't happen. But they did mention her again at the end when Lucy left.
And that's the only Lucy. Yeah, there you go. You did it.
Ruby. When
that's
Ruby left.
The only thing of that scene that I do think that they could have that was slightly misjudged in the whole, like, okay, it's fine that you've kind of got used to talking about family. That's a great point, but therefore you would then go, and you know what? I'm going to find Susan, and because I did say I'd go back to her, and that's my aim now, because I want to see. But he kind of just says, oh, I might meet her one day, and it's like that's not really the point that you've literally just made. It's kind of you've said one thing and then dismissed it straight away. But then I don't want to down be down on that scene, because I absolutely loved it and I bawled my eyes out when I watched it. Not in the cinema, I was too macho then, but when I watched it the second time on my own, I was there on that sofa sobbing. So it's just beautiful. It's just such good actors. They are so fantastic. I love them both. I think they're brilliant.
I need to zip off now, but I'll see you at Christmas.
We'll see you again.
God.
One day Pete shall come back.
Yeah, one day.
We'll find you again, yeah.
Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.
I enjoyed it, though. It was a good episode, and it's lovely catching up with you all. Goodbye.
And you, Pete.
Pleasure always. Pleasure always, sir.
See ya.
We're going to have to wait until we meet our own Ruby Sundays and learn to open up about knowing Pete before we not to find him.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's weird, Miles, because I absolutely agree with what you're saying in that it does seem like he says, oh, I've opened up about family and it was a mistake that I left Susan behind, but just not going to do anything about it. It seems strange. So maybe it is leading somewhere. And
it must be.
I hope so.
And that's another thing that I didn't like about Legendary Sunday, is the fact that that there was so much emphasis on the whole Susan thing to lead nowhere, to have no payoff. In a similar way
again,
that Susan Twist's whole sort of technology software that she's releasing to the world is something like completely nowhere. I mentioned it earlier, but the previously in the Empire of Death is literally the 10 seconds from the ending.
Kind of proving the point that it was just set up. Like,
purpose.
Yeah.
So it would be nice if it did lead somewhere, but who knows?
I mean, let's wrap up now, and any overall thoughts, I suppose, that we haven't already discussed, or maybe as well, looking at the series as a whole and where we're going from here. We've got Christmas, the episode, Christmas special this year, which will hopefully bring joy to the world. We've got season 2, obviously, next year as well. I think for me, this season has been a bit of a strange one. It's felt a bit, I don't know, like... It's a weird thing. It's been a shorter series, hasn't it? But not not as short as something like Flux, but Flux was serialized, and so in a way, I think this has kind of felt shorter almost to me. And yeah, it's a really weird thing. It's a weird format the show has where it's so varied each week. And 8 episodes, yeah, like it shouldn't feel short. It's the standard, or you know, it's kind of more than some shows have these days. Um, but yeah, I think for me, like, I mean, I suppose we can run through like favorite episode or whatever for each of us and things like that. I think the kind of the middle of the series was the strongest, like episode 3, 4, 5, 6 to some extent as well. I wonder in hindsight, it'll be interesting to see going forward as well with season 2 whether that's any more serialized or not. But I just think maybe containing it a bit more, even though the show's format is such that it thrives on having, you know, different locations each week and whatever, time zones, periods. And we had a lot of that this season with kind of different genres almost, or like the Bridgerton one, the kind of the Beatles one, whatever, those kind of one word pictures. But yeah, how do you guys felt about the series as a whole, I suppose?
I think I agree with you that, you know, the shortness has left room, weirdly, for there not to be as much variety and also not as much consistency as well, because there's the kind of need to try and jam as much kind of, you know, of a difference within that 8 episode run, as opposed to, you know, when we got that time to breathe. And like I think I've mentioned this like on another point when we were doing one of these, like watching series 5 while I was, you know, throughout all this, giving examples of little episodes like Amy's Choice, which ultimately is quite a throwaway, but is a really important one for character and stuff like that. You kind of don't get that in an 8 episode run because you're focusing on just trying to get that kind of that variety across.
Yeah.
So 100%, I don't think that it's been perfect, and I think that in terms of series 2, I don't think we're going to get a variation on anything really. I don't think there's going to be much serialization. I think it's going to be the same kind of
Yeah,
format
I
and
guess so.
approach, isn't it? Really, because it's been shot back to back.
Yeah, and they were conceived of and commissioned together
Yeah.
as well, weren't they? As like a 2 year
Exactly, as like a
plan,
package.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
So who knows whether series 3 might take us in a different way, but certainly series 2, I reckon it's kind of not in a damning way, but more of the same. But ultimately, I think that the vibe that I've got from this run, it's just been quite joyous and colourful as well. I think some of the Jodie stuff, as epic as it was and as beautiful as some of it looked, it did kind of sometimes seem a bit drab. I think back to like series 11, and the colour palette was very muted, and you know, I guess I just go to something like the Witchfinders when it was literally just almost black and white. So to have stuff like this, which has really popped, been very Disney, you know, it's kind of we kind of going into it didn't realize just how much of an influence that kind of ended up having. So I
Yeah.
kind of like the brightness of it. I like the sense of joy, but that hasn't been at the expense of the drama and of going to those darker places, like at the end of Dot and Bubble, like you know, bits of 73 yards and stuff like that. So I think that it's got the balance very, very it's sort of nailed the balance in a lot of ways, but 100%, I don't think that's not to say that it's been perfect, but the overall feel for me has been joy, and I'm kind of
Interesting,
I've
yeah,
left the
okay.
series feeling that, thankfully, which I'm glad about. Yeah. What about you, Josh?
I definitely agree that I think Boom, 73 Yards, and Doss and Bubble was a very strong, like, consecutive run of stories. I said at the time it felt very adult and mature, kind of wilderness years sort of esque. And also, again, I've said, I think when we were talking about Rogue, I've loved the variety in the styles of this season. It's almost like what Series 7A was trying to do, in that every episode is a big blockbuster, but it actually felt like it this time. So we
Yeah.
actually had a full on folk horror episode, a war story episode, a Regency episode, and our blockbuster Star Wars Marvel Endgame esque finale. I've loved the stylistic variety, but I'm guessing moving forward, yeah, serialization in terms of keeping an audience watching the show may be a better idea, or maybe just more two-parters. If you wanted, you could possibly go back to even McCoy sort of setup of if we've got 8 episodes, we could do two-parters for each of them. That would mean 4 stories, but would it come across as better in the long run?
Kind of series 9 approach, isn't it? Yeah. I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
But
it's
then would
interesting,
people
isn't
would
it?
people
Yeah.
then think like we've have even less of a run? Would that go even quicker for some people? I guess we also can't forget that it's technically only been 7 weeks because we've had the
Yeah.
2-season premiere, 2-episode premiere, didn't we? So it's been even shorter than the series itself. But yeah, sorry, go on, Richard. Interrupt you there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think probably I've said everything. I mean, yeah, just a bit of a weird, uneven one for me. I think Space Babies was the wrong way to start as well. And I hope next year, just a more kind of we have a more kind of conventional episode 1 maybe, and it'll be interesting with Christmas as well. Obviously, with Moffat back again, and there's that clip from Unleashed where he's like, "Oh, you want monsters? We've got monsters. You want pretty people? We've got pretty people. You want explosions? We've got explosions." It's like, oh, take that casualty or something. And so that'll be interesting to see as well. I don't really know what to expect from that story, apart from like kind of, I suppose, a very conventional early New Who Christmas special where it's like a one-off companion and a bit of a runaway bride type thing where the Doctor's taking some time out to like reflect on stuff that's happened recently. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, interesting to see where we go from here, and to mull over, I suppose, and reflect on this as the weeks, months, whatever go on. And yeah, I think that is my one takeaway, I suppose. If I was to kind of sum it up or think about it, yeah, very much kind of Disney series, Disney approach to Doctor Who, which. Yeah, it feels weird to say, or feels almost like simplification, or like stereotyping perhaps. But there are definitely moments, like the whole closing section or closing scenes of this story, where you have the final scene with the Doctor and Ruby, and the whole feel of the music, and even just like seeing the Doctor there, like at the console, and then obviously when Ruby comes out and it's like zooming away from the TARDIS down her corridor, and the shot of her with her mother's and her grandmother at the end, and then like the rooftop thing, like Mary Poppins, is all very, very much of that kind of. It's kind of it's something you can't really put your finger on necessarily what it is about it that feels so much like that, so Disney. But yeah, I suppose that's how we're going to look back at it. So I was like,
I'll counter that actually.
Okay, interesting.
It does feel like Disney throughout the whole thing. I think that if I was to break it down, the series, the Church on Ruby Road to the Devil's Cord felt very Disney.
I'm going to say that the middle episodes kind of went in a different.
Probably Rogue felt less like Doctor Who being made by Disney and more Doctor Who if it was made by Netflix, I would say. Very
Rogue,
interesting.
Bridgerton, Black Mirror, things like that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then the finale felt like Doctor Who on a big budget Hollywood.
With influences of Marvel, the kind of it was basically Infinity War Endgame, wasn't it? Right down to the dusting and then the snapback, all that sort of stuff.
Which I guess is Disney as well. But I'd say
okay, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah.
The season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I noticed you didn't. Did you mention Space Babies in that as well as like the Disney? You said Church on Ruby Road to Devil's Cord. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I could actually, I could get behind that. I suppose maybe more broadly than like it's the kind of the first kind of proper streaming series. Maybe that's a better kind of umbrella term for it. In terms of like how it's going to be written about, like in the future and looked back upon.
Hence the very kind of deliberate, the very deliberate baiting that we were kind of talking about. I suppose Russell sort of must have gone, well, in this generation where you can so easily just not bother watching next week, I'll have to force almost.
Yes, and I suppose to get your show heard as well, and to get it kind of in the public eye,
to get it talked about. Yeah. And in fairness, for better or for worse, he did at the very least get it talked about, and Doctor Who did seem to be it was right up there in terms of being talked about. It was still, you know, even though the viewing figures reflected it are a slightly different beast now, it still showed that Doctor Who is still up there in terms of drama and in terms of people watching. And I think there were some really powerful moments of telly throughout the series. You know, we've sort of mentioned, you know,
Yes.
Boom and everything like that. And I mean, what was our favorite episode of the
Episodes, yeah.
series? Yeah,
See,
we'll
I think
gear
I
into that.
would. I would say 73 yards, but I think Boom is a very kind of close second. Um, Similar sort of vibe, similar feeling. 73
I
yards.
was go on, Josh.
I would say I genuinely cannot pick between Boom, 73 yards, and Dawson Bubble. I think they were
Oh, all three of them. Okay.
so
Yeah.
strong. I
Yeah.
will rate really highly. 73 yards I rewatched, funnily enough, on election day.
Oh wow.
And the more I watch it, the more I like pick up things that I think is great. I didn't realize this as well, but a little tidbit from 73 yards, the song that's played during the montage when Ruby's
Yes.
getting older, I think it's called Watch Me. I can't remember the
I
name
found
of
it on
the artist that
Spotify.
sung
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been listening to it loads on Spotify. When I'd
Yeah.
be walking into work and I'd be like, "Watch me!" It's just
Yeah.
fantastic. It's great.
I can't remember the name of the artist.
Watch Me by Labby. Oh, I can't. Yeah, Labby Sifre,
Yeah.
or I don't know.
That's it.
That's the phonetic pronunciation, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But what I found out about him is that he was sort of well known at the time of his career for being like a black gay artist and like one of the only
Oh, right,
ones
okay.
out there. And I guess I'm be very interested when the scripts get revealed if that was written into the scripts and maybe if that was intentional, was like the
Interesting,
Doctor's
okay.
influence still being with Ruby, maybe.
Oh,
Interesting.
yeah. I like that.
Stuff like that. I like picking up on stuff like that. There's lots of layers to those episodes, especially Boom as well, and obviously
Yeah.
Dawson Bubble, even though it's a little bit more in your face. I think those episodes
Yeah.
are really rich, and I'd rate all of them very highly. But if you were to push me, I'd probably say Dawson Bubble purely because. Oh, but no, I say Boom. Okay.
I thought you were going to say Boom. I could see your lips were forming the letter B, and then you changed.
I would say Boom probably because the first two episodes I was thinking I'm not sure about this season, but Boom was what put me back on track, thinking yes, this is great stuff. This is proper Doctor Who. I'm excited for it. So for the overall mood that put me in for the rest of the season, I'd say Boom was probably my favorite.
That's a very good way of looking at it, to be fair. I think I agree that I think the strongest of the series was that 3-episode run. And 73 yards was instantly like a classic for me. I have watched, and I did watch it again recently, and I think, you know, it's still solidly there. It's not like it's gone down in my estimations, but it's still there. But the one that I think that really just is just a fantastic piece of television is Dot and Bubble. I think Dot and Bubble for me has become my peak of the season.
How interesting, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of just, it sells alone on that amazing final moment. I think it's got a lot to say, and just with all the series, there's a lot of like you were saying, Josh. There's a lot of layers that to these episodes, and a lot that you can kind of transpose, like you can put on top of these episodes, like in 73 yards, the idea of that woman being depression, you know, that thing that constantly follows you around, and there's just little things like that. I just love that telly can not just prompt theories but also prompt ways of seeing it and lenses to see it through. So I think that for that it's been great. So yeah, Dot and Bubble I think is the one I'd plump for, but there's some great stuff in there. Really, really fun.
Fantastic.
Great stuff.
So I suppose we've kind of got one person out of all of us piping for each of those kind of three middle
suppose
episodes,
so.
haven't we? I guess, and I don't know
I'm
what
fine
Pete
with all
would
of
have said,
them.
but
I loved all of them.
Yeah.
As you were saying them, I was thinking, I kind of wish I said Dawson Bubble now. Yeah, I think overall, like the season as a whole as well. As a relaunch of Doctor Who, I guess we'll have to see in the long run how many new viewers that's brought on and how successful it was, especially with the Disney Plus audience. But I think it's been a lot of fun. it's not been without its faults, but the high points have been very high.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to season 2, which is the main thing.
Yeah. And I think one of my hopes for season 2 is maybe having more voices in there,
Definitely.
because as much as I love Russell and as much as I think that he's really been clever in sort of taking the reins for this first season, no matter what you think of his episodes and his style, I think that it kind of needed that for the first run. It'd be interesting to see if for the second season he's kind of gone, right, I'm going to step a little bit of a step back. I'm sure he'll have written at least four of the episodes, but will he have allowed for a few more voices to be peppered in there for that one? Who knows?
I definitely hope so, and I like to think that the fact that he isn't writing the Christmas special is
Is that a
an
sign?
example
Yeah.
of what's going forward. He's going to bring more people on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There we get a lovely note to end on, I suppose. Looking to the future. So, I mean, thank you both, and obviously to Pete as well, who's not here still, but all three of you for joining me for these roundtable reviews across the past, I can't even say 8 weeks, can I? Because it's been longer than that, but 8 installments or whatever. Yep. I suppose since the 60th specials as well, actually, since the Star Beast. Yeah, we've been doing these. It's been great to chronicle.
Since we were at
this new era.
Riverbank Studios.
Yes,
Stood there with a mic, being joined by everyone. Yeah,
every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Yeah,
yeah.
Including Paul McGann.
Even Paul McGann and Miriam Margolyes and all sorts.
She was there, wasn't she? Yeah. Oh my god.
What a mad time.
Yeah, so thanks for joining me, guys. I mean, I hope everyone at home has been enjoying these reviews as well. Let us know all of your thoughts about Empire of Death, the finale, the season, and your hopes and predictions of the future as well. And I'm sure we'll see you again at Christmas or before or whenever. Certainly for Choice of the World. We'll see about what else. But yeah, more roundtable reviews to come. So yeah. I suppose what was the thing that Mrs. Flood says at the end? As for the Doctor, his story ends in absolute terror. Night, and
night, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Night.